What would you do if a dead classmate started emailing you from the afterlife, saying she's alive, but on the internet? And what if accessing the digital world started blurring the line between reality and cyberspace, and you start questioning your own experience and your own existence? You have to navigate a world where the internet is becoming God. You deal with stalkers who can manipulate reality through technology and figure out if you're even real or just a program. Today I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the Wired in Serial Experiments Lain. This quiet, awkward girl has no idea her reality is about to completely fall apart. Her name is Lain Iwakura. She's the kind of kid who fades into the background at school, barely talks to anyone, doesn't use computers, lives in her own little world. This girl named Chisa feels like life's gotten so complex, so she climbs to the top of a roof and kicks her own bucket. This changes many things. At school the next day, Lain's classmates receive a disturbing email from Chisa, the girl who kicked her own bucket by jumping off a building. And in class, Lain can barely pay attention because the letters on the board are just disappearing. Most people would delete this email immediately and see a therapist, but Lain's curiosity gets the better of her. She's the only one who hasn't seen the email, and so she heads home, turns on the computer, and sure enough, there's an email for her too. Chisa informs her that God is in the Wired. It's like their version of the internet, and mom doesn't give a flying you-know-what about it. When her dad gets home, Lain asks her about getting a better computer so she can access the Wired properly. Dad, who's basically a tech-obsessed hermit, gets really happy and starts talking about upgrading her ancient computer to something called a Navi. It's a personal computer. Things get weird. When Lain finally logs into Wired to check Chisa's email, she gets a response. Chisa tells her that God is in the Wired, that the boundary between physical world and the digital world is disappearing. And Lain doesn't need to be afraid. Being the socially awkward one that she is, she doesn't know what to do with this, so she just goes deeper. Okay, so she just speed ran from being computer illiterate to having deep philosophical conversations with a dead person in the Wired within 24 hours. Something bad's gonna happen. You're dealing with someone who is either pulling a cruel prank and hacked a dead girl's account. You should not engage with that like as if you're a pen pal. You should have reported it to the school counselor, administrator, anybody else. Force mom to peel it off from whatever she's doing, make her look at it, have dad fully read it, check it out. It's like, guys, I can't believe I have to talk about this. We gotta do some basic digital safety protocols here. Seriously. Learn how the Wired actually works. Understand the risks. Talk to somebody who knows about internet safety. The moment Chisa starts talking about how the physical world doesn't matter and God lives in the internet, maybe should log off and don't log back on. That is like the setup for being taken advantage of being manipulated, being gaslit. It's like the startup of a digital horror story. Abandon your body, join us in cyberspace, everything's great here. Kind of like the Matrix, not exactly the kind of thing you want to really truly be into. Look, in keeping all the weirdness on the down low to yourself, nobody can recognize how normal this is. You're dealing with emails from dead classmates. Might start to wonder if you have AI talking to you. Talk to Arisu, talk to the parents more. Seriously, even if they're useless. On her way home after school, Lain sees Chisa pass by her, and she disappears like a ghost. The next day, this dude buys himself a drug called Excella in a club, and the world around him slows down. Meanwhile, back at home, Lain can't figure out why she doesn't have any new emails. Sister stops by, remind her that she's gonna be late for school, and Lain rushes out, but on her way, she sees the strange man standing by a pole, staring at her. So she panics and runs to school, and at school, her classmates start looking at her weirdly when she arrives. But Arisu stops them and claims that whatever you're worried about, it wasn't Lain. Later, Lain asks if anyone's gotten any other mail or email from Chisa, and that's when her friend finally asks, what was she doing the previous night? Because they saw someone that looked exactly like her at a club called Siberia. However, the person they saw was wild, confident, chewed on people. Definitely not reserved Lain, so they decide to take Lain with them to the club in case she meets this doppelganger. Lain tries to turn down the offer by text, but when leaving school, she gets accosted by Chisa's ghost again and some strange apparitions walking through her. She freaks out, rushes back home. She gets there. Delivery guy hands over a parcel. It's the new Navi that she asked for, but it's the newest of the newest model with all the highest specs. Dad returns. Lain asks him to set up immediately, and once it's running, she registers herself as the Navi user, and everything about this simple Navi is going to change really quickly. Lain doesn't see an email, so she heads out to join her friends at Siberia, and she finds out that she's grossly underdressed. There, someone pulls out a gun and starts shooting. Everybody panics and runs, and Lain can't move from where she's standing, and Arisu helps her move. But when the shooter sees Lain's face, he freaks out and asks her why she's making him do terrible things. Lain does not break eye contact, walks up to him, even with the gun pointed at letter. When she mouths off that no matter where he goes, everyone is connected, the dude decides to freak out and, well, kick his own bucket. The cops take Lain in for questioning. However, when they call her home and her parents don't respond, they let her go. Arisu apologizes for dragging her out, but Lain's mind is beginning to fracture. Cops take her back home. The house is empty. She waits for a while and eventually goes to bed. The next day, Lain tries to talk to mom about her experiences, but mom's not interested, so she keeps it to herself. On her way out, Lain spots another stalker. Instead of a man, it's a black car. She runs off to the bus station, but in the bus, she hears a voice that says she's not alone. When she gets to class, the rest of the girls are gossiping, and in class, Lain can't pay attention. She's drawing circles in her notebook, and the circle starts spiraling, and Lain sees an apparition at the door where she hears a voice asking, "Who is Lain?" After school, Arisu's friends find Lain in the locker room and take her brown envelope from her because they think it's a love letter. When they see a cartridge inside it, they return it. Lain heads home, calling the cartridge Psyche. On the internet, people talk about a mysterious group of knights who created the Psyche. Lain listens to the other gossip over the wire before her dad comes home, and he's happy to see her using the Navi. But when she asks him what the cartridge is, his demeanor changes. He's like, "Oh, I don't know," and he quickly leaves the room. That night, Lain steps out to take a stroll to Siberia. When she gets out, the strange car is there again, but this time there's two dots following her every move from inside the car. She runs quickly and gets to Siberia. She meets these kids who show them her Psyche. They get excited and explain that with it, she can have full access to the Wired, and one of the kids explain how to set it up. Another kid says he has met her in the Wired before and she's acting differently now, but Lain's never been in the Wired. Later, Lain's sister returns home, finds these two men in black looking bozos at the front door. They hurriedly leave, and they tell her they were never here. Inside, she reports to Lain's mom, but mom doesn't seem to care. While passing Lain's room, Lain's sister sees her taking apart a new Navi, and she has no idea that Lain will soon do something very crazy in the Wired world. Lain turns herself into a computer nerd using a textbook. She continues to disassemble her Navi and pimp it up herself. No idea that her dad is watching her. When Lain's elder sister, Mika, goes to report her weird behavior to her parents, Lain's dad says it's totally normal. However, after she leaves, he tells his wife that something is wrong. Meanwhile, this dude gets chased by a random kid from the Wired world into the real world, and when he can't run anymore, he kicks his own bucket, and the news is all over the place. Lain's friends already have the tea. The suicide rate is increasing. For some reason, no one's realized it, but it's all thanks to the Navi. When Arisu and her friends talk to Lain, Arisu immediately notices that she's way more cheerful than usual. No one knows why. After Lain leaves them, she heads back to continue working on her Navi, and she gets a voice note from her dad that helps her with the modifications. Meanwhile, this DJ dude hears Lain ask a question, so he blurts out the answer. But when he turns around, she's not there. By night, this kid is seeing a glowing Lain chasing him around the Wild world. He breaks his console to stop this Phantoma game, and the virtual reality just won't stop though. So he fakes having a gun and pew-pews the kid, except the kid also dies in real life. Really weird. Now Lain observes everything from a safe distance. She gets a mail from someone about Phantoma. The dude explains there's nothing unusual about the game. They're having issue because there's a loophole in the protocol of the wire that lets kids jump from one game into another without anyone knowing. And it's all because the wire's connected. And the dude claims that the issues with the consoles might also be the work of the strange group called Knights. By nighttime, Lain's dad comes around, actually does something fatherly, and warns her not to confuse the Wired and the real world. She says the difference isn't as clear as he thinks. She also believes that she can transfer her full consciousness into the Wired because she's modified hers, and after listening to her dad just turns around and walks away. Great move, Dad. Lain continues messing around with her Wired till she sees the two laser-like dots from the black car. She heads down to her window, and sure enough, Stalker Dude's still there, but Lain commands them to leave, and her words form a crazy ripple that even bursts one of the Stalker's eye patches, and after that, they turn around and take their leave. This is freaky. You have social recluse, computer newbie, now manifesting digital superpower, personalities changing, literally manifesting the Wired into the real world, causing real world deaths in days. The escalation is crazy, and people are making the connections. You have the Wired, and reality, it is literally is merging like that email. And Lain's developing these elfin lead type of godlike powers that she doesn't understand. The biggest mistake is that she's modifying it without any understanding of the consequences. She went like full scientist mode and upgraded it based on textbooks and her dad's notes. Why in the world, if dad knows that something's wrong and he's not stopping her, guide her in a way, like what kind of dad is this? Another issue, Lain's treating the boundary between the Wired and reality like it's something that she could just ignore. Her dad told her don't confuse the two. She's like, nah, you're wrong. When your tech dad, who kind of got you into this mess in the first place, is saying be careful, good sign to listen. Third, stalkers with the laser dots, clearly watching her for a reason. Instead of figuring out who they are and what they want, Lain just blasts their eyeballs and send them away. Maybe use your powers in a better way, okay? Use the Wired to investigate them, figure out if they're connected to the Knights. Are they an actual threat? Are they trying to protect her from something worse? worse, knowledge is power here, guys. Lain's operating this weird, blind reality. And the most critical thing is that Lain is so isolated in all of this. Mom doesn't care. Dad's being cryptic, weird about everything. Sister thinks she's a nerd. She's not telling Arisu anything substantial about what's happening. You have all of these layers of people not caring, not tuning in, not really checking in on her. Like, Lain is on fast track to basically becoming a god, and she has no idea what the result of this is going to be. Now, we see a distorted vision of the city. It opens up, crowds moving through Tokyo streets, warped, flickering like a glitching video game. A voice speaks out over this scene talking about humanity, evolution, a new exit that humans created, and Lain herself is walking through the crowd. She asks, where's the exit? The voice just says, the network, the wired, and it says, I am God, and Lain looks up at the sky, and frozen in place as everyone around her is continuing on like nothing's happening. Mika, Lain's older sister, is alone in an apartment brushing herself off after being with a boy who tries to get her to stay longer. Mika ignores him, leaves, walks into the street. One intersection, a car suddenly barrels through red lights. Crowds scatter. Mika doesn't react. She just walks on. Back in Lain's room, she kneels before a doll in a dark corner, totally normal. With a smile, she asks it to tell her a story. And after some coaxing, the bloody doll speaks, and it explains something weird. Every event is predated by a prophecy. Only when the prophecy is there will the event occur, and Lain, stunned, asks who will tell this prophecy. The doll doesn't give any more answers. Lain's Navi switches on with news footage reporting that Tokyo traffic information system was hacked, automatic car controls going haywire, resulting in fatal accidents. They say the bug's fixed, won't happen again. On a giant screen in the city, there's a crash site. Lain's standing in the middle of the intersection, perfectly still as life pushes past her. She walks away. The strange man hands her a packet of tissues. Mika gets handed the same packet of tissues, and there's a message. Hell is full of the dead. The dead will wander. So she throws it down, says that's a bad omen. People murmur as the don't walk signal flashes, and Lain remains in the center of the street whispering to herself. Mika gets interrupted by a giant scream where Lain's super deformed face starts staring at her, which would make many people poop their pants. Back in Lain's room, wires are stinking across the wall, and a mask floats before her. It tells her the prophecy will be executed. Lain argues that something can't be happening. It can't be a prophecy. The mask explains that history isn't just a series of lonely events, that someone or something connects them. Lain asks who's the connection, but gets left without an answer. At school, Lain's classmates ask her about something that happened yesterday, hinting she did some hacker trick. Lain's confused and says she doesn't know what they mean. The Navi again show news about the traffic system hack, and Lain sits there looking like she's never touched a computer in her life. At dinner, her family, Mika asks Lain if she was in Shibuya earlier, and Lain denies it. Her parents ignore the exchange, absorbed in their own routine, like the world's worst disconnected parents. Mika drinks milk, but the surface sparkles, and abruptly they're back at the intersection. The crowd shifts into shadowy, energy-like figures approaching her, and Mika collapses to her knees. Imagery flips through surreal experiences. A pyramid shape behind Mika, a message written in spilled coffee that reads, execute the prophecy. A deserted restaurant that fades to static. Mika, running home, trembling and crying, sees another version of herself in the hallway. That duplicate disappears when Lain arrives, and only a ghost like Mika remains before fading away. Back in Lain's darkened room, lit by only her glowing monitors, Lain stares into the screen and just asks, who will it be today? The night starts at Lain's house. Her father stands outside her bedroom and notices something weird. There's water on the floor, and Lain's Navi computer is expanded to fill most of the room. He calls her name, and Lain doesn't seem to be aware of him anymore. Lain's suddenly floating in a brilliant white space in the wire, talking to unseen figures about protocols and how things are so strange, and her voice is calm and curious as she speaks about the odd situation, and ends the conversation by thanking the knights. That's a big red flag. Morning comes, Lain walks to school, and out of nowhere, a boy on the sidewalk points up at the sky and with his arms raised in a V shape, and Lain looks at where he's pointing, and when she turns back, the boy's gone. And at school, Lain's about to connect her pocket Navi to the wired, but her classmates stop her. Reika teases her about being too diligent. Arisu and Juri laugh together. They ask Lain if she's alone, and Lain says that many people visit her, and then she corrects herself, saying maybe she goes where they are. Her friends press her for details, but she smiles mysteriously and calls it a secret. After the schoolgirls go shopping together, laughing, enjoying life, their walk slows down. Reika points out a boy down the street. Same boy Lain saw before, staring at the sky. Lain sees him, and the girls continue down the street, and Lain's attention gets drawn to two children who raise their arms towards the sky just like the boy. The sky shifts in an eerie way as clouds part, and a massive image of Lain appears among them, like a figure watching them. People in the crowd gasp, questioning what they're seeing. Arisu realizes that is Lain. Then the sky just kind of poofs back to normal like nothing happened. Back at home, Mika sits on the couch watching watching TV. Mom mentions how Lain's been coming home late a lot. Mika barely responds, staring blankly at the screen like she's just checked out. Lain enters her dark room. Her Navi turns on by itself. A news report plays about an extraordinary phenomenon. Lain angrily strips off her outerwear and sits before the screen and tells her Navi to connect her to the Wired. She's not had enough nightmare fuel for one day. In the Wired, Lain goes along a path of light and darkness, gets confronted by a giant mouth, talks to her about changing shape in the real world, claims superiority because of its user permission level. Lain brushes it off and demands information, asks about a game children are playing, and it hints that someone else might know more and calls him Result. A panel appears showing an image of an old man in a lab coat. Lain calls him a child killer. Lain finds this professor reclining peacefully on a balcony when she demands to know about kids. He talks about wanting peace until his body rots in the real world. Lain presses him about the kids' project, and he explains it was an experiment, trying to gather PSI energy from children 15 years ago. He described rows of kids wired up with devices called autoreceptors. He admits the project broke them completely, and they cannot be restored, and through the schematic somehow leaked into the Wired, and it's been updated to work without the original hardware. So now this nightmare is open source. Lain confronts him emotionally, asking if he only cares about his work, and the professor's tired and praises Lain's strength before disappearing in a white glow, leaving her alone, and she mutters the word Knights to herself. Back in her room, in the real world, Lain is slumped before her Navi, venting in frustration. Why is nobody answering her? If she was just a toy, and what they want with the children. The equipment around her begins to get hot. 2 red laser sights scan her ceiling. The 2 black men stand by in their car. Lain sees them, confronts them, demands them to know. Are they knights? They tell her to get down, and an explosion rips through her room and the cooling system fails. Lain asks what happened. One of them explains the cooling system blew because a parasite bomb was placed in it. Lain insists they sound like they had nothing to do with it, and they don't answer her questions. Before driving off, the taller one tells her the knights were responsible, leaving Lain stunned as sirens are wailing in the distance. And back in her room, stuff's not right. Wires are spilling out like it's organic, like it's growing, like it's alive, filling the space, twisting, threading everywhere. Lain sits in front of a massive now Navi setup, talking quietly to voices that don't sound human. She's trying to understand to make sense of what's happening to her, and then Mika appears in the doorway, barely speaks, like she's fading out of reality. Lain notices, then turns back to her computer as it's flashing a warning on screen. On the streets, society does not look right. A man wanders around with a bizarre rig strapped to his back, deeply lost in his own wired reality, while people are walking past him and he's invisible. The Wired is not a place on the web. It's bleeding out into everyday life, and people are feeling the ripple effects. Back at school, Lain is physically present, but she's not there. She's tinkering on her hand at Navi. While the class goes on, Arisu sees it happen, and there's real concern in her eyes. She's worried because Lain's not quiet anymore. Like, not just quiet. She's retreating into something, and the Wired is not something that she just uses sometimes. This is her world. This is where she lives. Now, there's a vulnerable moment on the roof with Lain and Arisu. Lain blurts out something unsettling. The real world isn't real at all. It's almost casual, but heavy with meaning. And Arisu reacts not with judgment, but with concern. She asks if Lain's okay. Says she and others try to get help by getting her out of the house, taking her places, trying to cheer her up. And Lain, kind of stunned, Lain says thank you, and it's honest. And for a second, Lain kind of flickers back to who she used to be. And it's brief, but it's real. And then there's this unnerving news broadcast. Computerized voices telling viewers that something strange has happened in the Wire. The firewall has a big information monitoring center, and it was cracked. All throughout the Wired, people are talking about knights. Questions like, who are the knights? Some say they're influential, distributing illegal information devices. Others just echo snippets of phrases like metamorphosize, power, existence, yada yada. People are searching for Lain online, typing her name into search engines, trying to find anything, but nothing concrete shows up. It's like she's everywhere, but nowhere. In the real world, Lain's walking home and finds the 2 men in the black car waiting outside her house, and they tell her they want her to come with them. They won't force her. They vaguely imply they're connected to Takibana General Laboratories, and they'll explain more once she's inside. She's confused. She's unsure, and for the first time, you can see Lain being worried. Yeah, the men in black dudes, they take her to the secret hideout, and this old man is fiddling with an old computer. Lain interrupts him and helps him pimp it up. When she fires it, she finds herself on the screen, and there's an excited voice because it means she's a part of the Knights. The old man turns off the computer and gets down to business. He tells Lain that she's something unnatural in the Wire. She's definitely tied to it. He also lets her know the Knights are interested in her. She tries to find out who they are, but the old man spins the book on her and pulls the oldest trick in philosophy. He asks her if she knows who she is, if her parents are real. And when he's done with that, Lain has more questions than she ever did before. Lain can't even remember her parents' birthday, even her own birthday. And she has a personality switch. Lain from Wired comes to the forefront. Wired Lain strolls out and takes her leave. The strange dude that tried to join the Knights kicks the bucket, falls into a ditch, but his strange wired visor's still working. Later, Lain heads into the wired and she has another weird conversation with a shady-looking female silhouette, comes back to the real world. Mika, still muttering inaudible words. Lain sees her mom and dad, tries to ask him about what the men in black spoke of, but instead of answering, they just give her this death stare. Lain gets to school and Arisu asks Lain if she has been spreading rumors. Lain has no idea what she's talking about. Others feel like Lain is just playing innocent, but when Lain's eyes filled with tears, Arisu steps back and tries to reassure her. She tells Lain she trusts her and that she shouldn't worry about the rumors. After school, Lain continues investigating within the wired, starts to confront the possibility that she might not be in control of her own actions. Voices and figures in the wired tease her, and when she responds to the headless people, she hears the sound of someone distinct. She thinks it is God, and he teases her with the idea that another version of herself exists, and that there is a wired Lain who is distinct from the Lain in the real world. She begins to see that maybe wired Lain is the one acting independently, spreading information, rumors without her awareness. She opens her eyes and she's back in class again, but this time they're looking at her. It turns out she's been using an app called Peeping Tom. There's no way to explain it all. Now Arisu believes that Lain really spilled the tea on her. Lain tries to run, but everybody has heard, and everywhere she turns, people are staring at her. She's overwhelmed. She tries to find a safe spot to cry, wondering why did she pick the wire? What did the wire do to her? Memories come crashing in. She caught Arisu flicking, well, you know what, in the wired, and she told everyone. Lain gets angry, tries to kill off the other Lain in the wired, but instead, all the headless people around her turn into Lains, and the voice explains that our girl is the freaking wired. Lain doesn't believe it, but when Lain is about to run and greet her friends, another Lain ahead of her joins them. The new Lain walks away with them, and another Lain torments the Lain left behind. A lot of Lains. It's very confusing. All right, look, big problem. There's many versions of us running around. You gotta start asserting yourself here, big time. You gotta decide to use your reality-altering powers to fix this. The wired Lain spreading rumors, that's not a bug. That's like a feature. It's showing us that you've lost control of your own existence. Should have tried to investigate what the wired Lain actually is. Why is she acting independently? Can we merge our consciousness back together? Or can we establish clear boundaries between personas? We're using these powers reactively and not proactively. We've only deleted the rumors after they cause damage. We're kind of doing like whack-a-mole. We gotta figure out the line between helping, if we can delete bad memories, what's stopping us from deleting all bad things? What's the line between playing, I don't know, trying to right the wrongs and being God? More importantly, deleting everybody's memories, you are super powered. Lain just needs to ask the right questions. Lain is like the Flash. Just pull a flashpoint into one reality and there's many timelines. If I were Lain, I would put a lid on maybe using the powers until you can start to carefully play around with these and actually learn to control them. So the next day, we see Lain in her room. She's sad and alone, Navi gear running, wires, screens everywhere. The floor is covered in water left over from her cooling system. She hears the sound of the door. Someone steps into the room, but when she crawls around her equipment to see what it is, it's a weird, strange figure. It's like an alien with long arms and oversized head. It doesn't talk, it just smiles and disappears. So Lain enters the wired again. She's surrounded by strange energy beings made of light. She has deep existential questions. Lain insists she isn't her, that she's not the wired, and beings start debating existence, how memory works before disappearing. Our girl's alone and furious and confused. Lain heads to Club Siberia. The DJ sees her. He hands her a plain brown envelope. He claims he forgot yesterday. Inside, she finds a microchip. Elsewhere at the club, 3 school acquaintances are sitting together. Lain approaches them, tells the kid Taro she'll go out with him on a date. Taro looks confused and half-jokingly says he doesn't want to date the current Lain. However, Lain takes him home, wink wink. Taro is impressed by her complex Navi setup. Lain sits him down, shows him the microchip the DJ gave her. She then asks him bluntly if he's a knight. Taro stammers and panics and admits that he's in contact with the knight, so he's not a full member yet. The chip is a non-volatile memory device that would overwrite existing memories if installed. After spilling all this, Taro kisses Lain before leaving, and despite all the things, he is a stud. He considers they're meeting a date. Lain does some digging into her memory of the wired and finds out a dude named Masami Eri, former Tachibana Lab researcher, supposedly developed the code in some 7th protocol to use Schumann resonance and connect people at an unconscious level. But his work was discovered and the lab fired him, and he was found dead, his body hit by a train. Lain heads out for some fresh air and finds a man in a lab coat across from her. Lain looks at him and realizes that this is Masami Eri himself. Lain confronts Eri and claims that he's God, and Eri starts asking questions that Lain's thinking like, how can you be God when you're dead? And Lain says flesh isn't necessary to be alive, that only death abandons the body. Eri's in for a shock. Lain reveals something big about herself. She says she improved Protocol 7. She encoded memory memory, emotion, thought into the wired, she could live forever. Eri said, what would she be called? She says God. Eri tells her that God can exist without believers, although he contradicts it. She calmly says the knights are her believers. Before he disappears, he tells her that she doesn't need a body anymore, and Lain rejects the thought. Real world hits her like a tidal wave. Lain walks into her classroom, classmates laughing, chatting like nothing happened. Her desk is gone. The space where it was empty. The teacher hands out a test, but when she gets to Lain's row, she doesn't even acknowledge her presence. Lain stands there, hands empty. Is she alive? Is she real? She looks for Arisu, but in Lain's head, she hears the voice of Aru saying, you're right, Lain. You're no longer needed in the real world. But Arisu hasn't spoken. And at this point, Lain's like, I'm kind of crazy now. She walks home. Everything's eerily silent. Her house is dark. It's empty. No evidence that anyone has lived there for a while. Mika's room is empty. Her father shows up behind her and he tells her that his job is done. It's time to say goodbye. She's finally free to do whatever she wants. He leaves. She cries and tries to follow him, but he tells her that she was born in the Wired, and in the Wired, she would never be alone. So Lain goes to the Wired. A voice asks her if she wants to do something, because she's the boss of the world. She asks, who are the knights? The voices debate who they are, where they came from, what they mean. Lain says quietly that God in the Wired can be God, because there are believers of God. And that's when Lain gets angry and flashes of energy explode, but she doesn't know that in the real world, her anger is having an effect. The world is collapsing around the knights of Eastern Calculus. On Net News, a full list of the Knights members is posted. Panic breaks out. Ordinary people see their names, their faces online. One businessman tries to pack and run. Other scenes show individuals tied to the Wired dropping dead in their homes. Net News reports that people all over the world are kicking their bucket. Many of them are connected to networks or were members of the Knights. Back in her room, Lain sits wired into her Navi, eyes half closed, cords wrapped around her, multiple screens flickering messages. The men in black enter, and one of them tells her that it was a request from their clients to eliminate all the Knights they uncovered. He says the Wired must not be a special world, it must also help the real world. Lain tries to speak but is interrupted and says she must not exist in the Wired because she is still alive. They tell her that soon, even the lingering ghost of Masumi Eri will be released and gone, and their client is going to rewrite Protocol 7. Lain goes back into the Wired and finds Eri again. She wonders how can he still exist if all his followers are dead? He says because she still believes in him, he will continue to exist. Eri tells Lain that she never had a family. She's always been a hologram from the Wired. That gets her angry and she screams and the power lines snap and Eri disappears. Okay, the moment your desk disappeared, teacher's not acknowledging you, there's definitely a problem. Like our own Wired self is trying to merge us into the digital world. You have an ability to investigate this, but you're too PTSD shell-shocked to do anything. We're believing our father when he said, we were never a real family. Their job is done. Even if the family's fake, they still existed, they still raised us, they still have information. You could have done some digging. You have superpowers. They've been shadowing us this whole time. One of them literally said, I love you before leaving. That's not normal operative behavior. You could have pushed these men in black guys. What's their end game? As for Eri, you could fry his memory before even giving him a chance to get in your own head. Lain knows her powers are great. She's not using them. She needs answers. Maybe she should try to crack a few skulls and figure something out. So Lain loses herself in a haze of memories, and when she wakes up, Eri's beside her. He congratulates her on becoming a sentient being. Turns out her girl has downloaded a full emulator of her Navi directly into her own brain. That means she no longer needs computer to access the Wired, and her mind is the interface. Eri warns her that the effort could be dangerous because her body might not be able to handle the information. He tells her that she is really not a human machine, but a sentient software program that happens to occupy a physical form. Lain leaves her house, walks through the streets, wrestling with everything. She sees Chisa's ghost, no longer lively but sorrowful. Immediately that she sees the shooter from Siberia. He tries to convince her that she does not need her physical body anymore. He gives her a pistol, tells them to join them in some other state of being. Lain doesn't accept it. She turns away, holding on to her human form because, heaven forbid, our girl is an AI. At the same time, Arisu reads a message on her screen about how people no longer remember the rumor that once caused chaos. The rumor about her teacher, was gone. Something strange appears just outside her door, a distorted figure, and Arisu's scared. The figure reveals itself and it looks like Lain, but it's twisted and it's unsettling. This Lain explains that it wasn't the real Lain who spread the rumor, that she now has power over reality itself because the barrier between the Wired and the real world has been broken. She tells Arisu she's been working to be able to erase the past event so that life could be easier. Then she just poofs, and Arisu's confused and horrified by what just happened. The next day, everything changed again. The rumor about Arisu gone. Her classmates talk like it never happened. happened. Arisu stands in a white haze for a moment. She sees Lain behind her, looking at her in a way that is strange, almost like a reflection in a mirror that doesn't quite match. Lain's expression is unsettling. Arisu greets her friends normally, but things feel off. Wow, okay, so Lain just downloaded an entire computer system into her brain, became ascended artificial intelligence with a physical body. Here we are wandering the streets, having existential breakdowns, encountering digital ghosts. Maybe create a set of rules, try to create like some sort of mental framework to understand this. What will I use it for? What are my limits of my power? How can I trust myself if I'm going too far? Like, you're operating with these almost godlike abilities. That is a recipe for disaster. Look at how you handled Arisu. You show her place. Twisted version of ourselves. Hey babe, we rewrote reality for your benefit. Poof, gone. Not so great. Maybe show up as a normal Lain first, explain what's happening, ask for help in staying grounded. Still crazy, but maybe she could mentally handle that better than just blasting her with that visual. And another thing is, you're trying to maintain your normal life while simultaneously existing in this reality warping entity. It's not sustainable. You gotta commit to being human, seal away your wired powers, or you fully embrace whatever you are and you are stopping this whole pretending thing of being a normal school girl. Lain and Arisu, they head to class. Arisu only watches from a distance. When Lain notices Arisu watching her, she sends a text from her brain, freaks her out even more. At the same time, Lain talks with Taro through his headgear and announces to his friends that he kissed an angel. Meanwhile, Men in Black can't explain why things are so far out of control despite all their efforts. Benefactor shows up with a briefcase to pay him off. That's when they realize that they've been used. He tells them to run, find some place without a satellite because something exciting is about to happen. And so he drives off. His friend goes into a state of shock, dies. He goes into shock, and the last thing he sees is an image of Lain. Elsewhere, Arisu, brave choice, goes to visit Lain's house, finally to bring some answers to the chaos. Arisu pushes open the door. She finds the house total disarray, trash, weird liquids, weird graffiti. It's just weird. On the staircase, she sees Lain's sister muttering nonsensical just before disappearing. Arisu climbs the stairs, enters the room. She finds Lain wrapped in wires, tangled in her massive Navi equipment, and she calls her name, and she lifts her head up, but barely whispers Arisu's name. She doesn't hold back. She asks Lain, what'd she do to everybody's memories? Why did she erase them all? Arisu, crying, asks if Lain hates her. Lain insists it's not why she did it. She says Arisu became her friend, even though they never connected the way that other people do. She says she loves Arisu and that she believes all of humanity was unconsciously connected long before the wire existed. Arisu puts her hand on Lain's chest so she can feel the heartbeat, and for a second they laugh, and the laughter is followed by fear, because deep in the room, this Masami Aries presence returns, and Arisu can't see him, but Lain clearly hears him. Ari explains to Lain about how humans could potentially control emotion by modifying the brain's impulses. But Arisu sees only a ghostly hand reaching from behind Lain. Arisu is alarmed, steps back until Lain tells her that she's talking to God. Ari's voice continues another line of questioning. He tries to justify his own existence as a god of the wired, claiming that physical bodies are outdated. He gave Lain her flesh, her ego. Lain challenges him. They get into an argument. Ari decides to give himself a body, so all the wires in the room start moving, and they create a phantom body of Ari. Arisu's terrified as this creature grows. Arisu screams, and Lain calls out her name, trying to protect her. And it's then that Lain's own equipment, they begin to act on their own. Wires detach, twist, like serpents. The machines move as if guided by Lain's will. They crush the monstrous form Ari has tried to build, burying him in a mountain of mangled hardware. Now, Arisu's panicking all anew as Lain defeats Ari. Her mind can't take what she's been forced to witness. She screams, pushes Lain off, but Lain can't figure out why she's destroying everything she lays her hands on. Lain resets the entire world, and after the reset, Lain doesn't exist anymore. It's just her father, mother. Life continues as normal. Chisa's still alive. Arisu, rest of the gang still friends. Even Ari's still alive in this reality. While they're all happy living life, Lain is still deep, fighting within the wired, deep in the wired. Lain finds another Lain, and they talk for a bit. Things get too lonely, and her dad finds her, and they have tea. Thereafter, a much older Arisu walks with her partner, but spots Lain standing on a pedestrian bridge. She tries to say hello and asks if she knows her, but Lain denies it. They say their pleasantries and goodbye. Lain finally realizes that she can see anybody she wants to, whenever she wants to, so she promises to be with everybody forever.